Hey Scott, how's it going?
I you ever you have something that you're working on, like code wise, that is so minor, like extremely minor, like a small detail, and it ends up consuming like 3 hours of your day because it won't work.
Yep.
And it's always worked in the past, but for whatever reason, it doesn't want to work now. And you're like, I quadruple checked myself. This should work. It works for all these other controls. Why doesn't it work for this control? After all, they all inherit from the same base type. It should just work. But it doesn't work. I don't understand why this doesn't work. I've wasted 3 hours of my life on something that should just work. That's what I'm going through right now.
Yeah, I think any developer who's been in the business sufficiently long enough to build has run into that scenario more than once. So, yeah.
Man. I still haven't checked my. Apparently, I got like 20 plus Twitter notifications from the when I trolled 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't looked at it yet. I've been hella productive not looking at notifications.
Yeah. Maybe you should never look at notifications again. So,
Well, I still got to retaliate for whoever said mean things to me, and then I'll probably hang it up. But
so you're on lockdown?
I'm in Canada still.
Wait. So you can't even come home probably.
I should. I'm a U.S. citizen.
Oh, okay.
I,
I thought they closed the border down, but
I think they
maybe they didn't.
did. But if I'm a U.S. citizen, then like I should be able to go back to my native country.
Yeah.
I mean, they might quarantine me, but yeah, I think I'm gonna be here for a while.
Yeah, or you'll just stay in Canada and become Canadian. You can start watching hockey.
It has its perks. Uh, I mean, healthcare isn't free, but it's paid for already by the Canadian taxpayer. So, and it has its perks. I mean, that's one of the things, right? Like people that don't have medical insurance tend to avoid medical like checkups, or if they are sick, they'll wait until they're on their deathbed to finally go to the doctor because they just don't want to pay a $200, $300 bill. Um, in Canada, I don't think that's an issue, right? Which is, I think, one of the concerns in the United States is people that don't have adequate health care coverage or health insurance, they're not getting tested, or a significant number of them aren't getting tested to see if they have the virus because they can't afford that $1,000 bill. If they do go there and they find out that they've contracted it, and then they get whatever treatments, like, so there's probably a whole bunch of people walking around that uh, maybe are even carriers, but they just have sniffles, and like because of United States broken system, they just it's not in their interest to, especially we're in a recession now, right? So it's not in their interest to have a $1,000 bill, probably more if they actually have contracted it, right? And there's a likelihood that they're going to get laid off within the next probably 60 days. So things are getting complex right now.
Yeah, there. I think there's movements to take care of that though. In terms of, I know some insurance companies have flat out said they're covering the cost. Um, so I'm not. I don't know if it's so much the cost of testing anymore. I've seen some complaints about they need additional beds, but they can't discharge patients that don't need the beds until the insurance companies come through and clear their dismissal or something like that. And man, it's the control of the insurance companies that is what I think really messes everything up with our system. And I don't know if transitioning that to the government makes it better. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Uh, either
because
either
I mean
way.
Medicare is also a big problem too. My wife works with a clinic, and they're trying to do telehealth right now, and from what I'm understanding, is that Medicare will cover it if you live in Hawaii or Alaska, but it won't cover it if you're in the contiguous 50 states for whatever reason. So you can't do like Medicare patients can't use their Medicare to pay for telehealth. So it's stuff like that that's just stupid.
Uh, I know one thing though. There's a lot of money to be made right now, and also during the recovery phase of this economy. You sent me a message that I didn't look at until yesterday. I think you sent it like several days ago on Twitter saying, "Hey, maybe it's a good idea for you to expedite this mobile delivery solution." Now, I never even thought about, because you were talking about the mobile delivery solution. You weren't talking about beach delivery. You're talking about like the e-commerce marketplace of buyers and sellers for mobile solutions, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of options for delivery, but there's probably right now there's some niche or some group or some small business set that needs kind of help right now. And they like a technological solution to enable some different way of doing business. So I don't know, finding those people and hooking you up with them or would be difficult, but I mean you could try, but
does the hourly rate for a professional developer go up or does it go down given these economic conditions?
um I think I'm guessing it'll go down. It depends because I think I'm anticipating that developers, we're not going to be immune from layoff, even though we can work remote for the most part. The thing is, companies that people work for are going to be having to lay off people or whatever. So there's going to be a bigger pool of potential developers to switch companies or whatever, which means that the supply will be up, but the demand will be down, which usually indicates a shift towards less cost, right? So, but I mean, there should always be demand for good developers, though.
Yeah, but the thing is the people that are looking for good developers don't know how to measure a good developer from a bad developer until they hire them.
Yeah,
That's the most annoying like paradox or catch 22,
yeah,
because it's like I think majority of, well, I'll speak for myself, like I suffer from that, right? Like always trying to justify my rate. Oh, you're too expensive, we can't afford you. Always trying to for lack of a better term, restate my experience. I'm not just a mobile developer. This is what I can help you with. I understand that this specific role is X, but I could do Y, Z, and beta, whatever. But it's like talking to a squirrel. Like they just don't get it. They get sticker shock, and then they run out of budget with nothing to show for it.
dang. I had a good thing this week happen. So told you last Friday I was just upset about this whole thing with this authorization stuff and everything, and how they, people wouldn't listen. I ended up writing like an essay last Friday about why this wasn't the right thing to focus on, and it actually had an impact, and they changed course.
Oh wow,
So yeah,
it
like we
must be
got in
some
the
dissertation.
we got in the in a meeting on Wednesday. I had my gloves on, ready to go. Like this is gonna be a painful one. I was thinking going in, and they're just like, "Yep, we read through the words," and I'm like, "Here it comes." And then they're like, and after looking through it and having conversations, we decided that yeah, we need to focus on this other thing. And I'm like, I was just about in tears.
Was it unanimous, or was the architect still defending his ego
No,
or
no,
her ego?
it was the it was this was the architect saying it. So
Okay.
yeah, I was about in tears, being like, they actually listened. They listened.
Uh,
I had this big grin on my face, and just it was like Christmas. I don't know.
that's cool. So are they treating you differently now? Now that you've
I don't have much interactions with them other than that, but after they realized it switched to that, then it. I mean, they might have not liked my demeanor about it, because it's uh, this is a conversation that I've had before, and it's just getting frustrated with it. But I mean, after that, it's when they started to focus on the right thing. It's like, hey, how can we help? How can we get this knocked out? What do we need to do? So hopefully they took some, hopefully they are gonna take that seriously and let us contribute here, because we have a lot to contribute. But I don't know. Yeah, it was a good. And then this other thing that I wanted to do from a product standpoint, because I think it'd be valuable to the end user, sort of got approval at the same day. So I was able to have a big chunk of work to, not a big chunk, a small chunk, but a meaty chunk to work on for the last couple of days. So it was a good week for that. So
moving on up.
yeah, or maybe it's just because everyone's like locked up in their houses and can't talk to each other, so they're just a little bit more malleable. I don't know.
Have you picked a new project yet?
Uh, you don't know, but it's funny. I started on something the other night, and then I realized about before bed that I'm like, this is actually pretty stupid. It was just going to be kind of like a I don't know, entertainment type thing. But at work in Slack, just to try to kind of like ease some of the work at home thing, we have this thread called Quarantine Radio that I started, where it's just like it's just a chain letter basically, but you pick a YouTube video, and then you tag the next person to pick a different YouTube video for music. And so it was kind of like a team building type thing. And I'm like, oh, I could build a site that actually keeps track of which ones you've watched, and um, sends out a notification, and auto prioritizes who gets to picks next, and blah blah blah. And I got into, I'm like, nah, this is dumb. So I shut it down. But I don't know, this virus thing. It's like I want to, like, I feel like I have a skill that I could use in some way to help either small businesses or whatever, or other people, and I wouldn't mind building something out, but I have no idea what that could be.
There's an open source project by is it Richard Campbell? The .NET Rock guys. There's Carl Franklin and Richard Campbell. Richard Campbell, I thought, heads the humanitarian toolbox
Yeah.
that's on GitHub. I reached out to him when the hurricane hit Bahamas. He never replied back to me, so
Hmm.
I ceased to reach out to them anymore. But that's something that you could, I don't know, look at if I don't know if you ever if you care about open source software. But it's my understanding is pretty big. The humanitarian toolbox.
Yeah, I've heard him talk about it before, but I haven't looked at it.
Um, I think yeah. So I had got, I received my first like solo project at work, and I've pretty much since last Tuesday, like they gave it to me, and I've pretty much just been surging on that project like all day, every day, including the weekends. And so like I'm wrapping up with it now. I probably have like 2 weeks of like just clean up and polish. Um, but yeah, I think I'm going to start returning back to my hour in the morning, hour in the evening ritual of of this passion project that I was supposed to be working on for these masterminds. So I think I'm going to return to that. No one answered my question on Stack Overflow that I posted 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and so now I raised the bounty to 100 points, and in maybe 2 to 3 days, if I still don't get an answer, then I think I'm going to purchase a Microsoft subscription for $30 a month to get technical support. I need to move past this. And so hopefully that 30 days a month isn't going to be a lock in for like 6 months or a year.
And this is with Azure, right?
Yeah.
I thought when you purchase Azure stuff, you get your or do you have to have an additional subscription to get support, and you have a lesser thing right now?
When I was trying to look for options to get my question answered, there is a technical support product or service on Azure, and it's $30 a month.
Mm, okay, so it's just like if you don't want it, you don't have to buy it.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I posted that question like 2 weeks ago or 10 business days ago, and I've gotten nothing. No comments, no answers, nothing. So,
Maybe it's just a hard. I mean, you look through it, and I can't make it. It doesn't seem like from a code perspective there's anything wrong there. So,
uh,
um,
oh, so you understand F sharp now, or it's legible enough?
well, I mean, it's yeah. I can read general. I mean, I can read what's going on in a lot of cases. I just don't. I don't know if I can fabricate it just from that.
In addition to that, I started my project, man, with a heavy influence of that book, Writing Software by Javal Lowy. And man, I've been going in. I mean, I've been working a lot only because I find the problem domain like or the business domain really interesting. But I pretty much go into autopilot, man, when I'm building out all these different components of the application, like the view models, the skeleton pages, the domain model types and operations. Like I've just been in cruise control, just knocking it out. It's weird. Like, have you experienced that where you have your own personal process, and after like half a dozen times of doing the process, making adjustments or refinements, you kind of just go into cruise control with any project? That's a typical like uh, app.
Yeah, I mean, there's some.
Or is it different because you're always working on a team, so you can never, you always have constraints where you can't just architect things that you would like in order for dominoes to just fall in place?
No, there's like I had a service recently that does some that looks up some information and does some comparisons and some transformations and things to come up with kind of like a almost like a diff of you're going from this to this and then interpreting what that means. Um, And in that service, I basically I pretty much had control over everything. So in terms of structuring things and naming things and just hey, make this be the way that I would like to see it. Yeah, I had total control over it. So when you do that, you can just funnel through code so fast. I feel like honestly, it's like with microservices and stuff like that. I almost feel like the goal should be to try to have people not have to work with each other, and that
Thank you.
taking out the barrier of taking out the barrier of team communication, um, or taking that barrier down, I think would just grease the whole wheels as long as you can define contracts well enough between people, and that's that contractual stuff. Not everybody's, I guess. Some people, I guess, don't think in that way. Like whenever I see a dependency on someone, I'm like, well, look, it's only a dependency in terms of how we need to define the contract. So we define a contract between us, then we can provide a temporary mock or stub or something like that does this, get all of our side of the code done, and then we'll just hook it up for real. So there's no need for us to get the capability done. You might need both teams, but to get our portion of it, we can do it whenever, as long as we know what we're getting.
And they probably rejected your idea.
Now it's worked a few times. I don't know why. I mean, some people get that, and some people just the idea, especially like the the more business analyst or the requirements type people, really don't seem to get that you can kind of just abstract something away and then do all of your work based off that abstraction. And I mean, you have an assumption because you don't know what it's going to actually be like when it gets in and works for real. But there in a lot of cases, you just don't need dependencies to be ready in order for you to do your code. So
Yeah, I have the maybe the same sentiment where at work I was like, "Hey, can you provide me the service that will give me the selection options for me to choose from on my dashboard?" And they're like, can you just expose some endpoint for me to send you my user ID or whatever, um, and you could just expose me this JSON of selection items. And they're like, oh no, you get that from this blah 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 specific domain term that only the business understands the definition of. And like, I try to pick and choose my battles, or I try to choose my battles like wisely. But it's kind of to the point of I don't want to embed server side jargon and technical terms for an application that should really be agnostic. It doesn't need to know the implementation details. I just want the values that a user needs to select from without knowing how those values are determined from some XML matrix C measure jargon. And so I think that's where a lot of us get in trouble when we're building apps, at least on the client side. We bring in all this technical jargon from the server side that really can be abstracted away. And I think there's confusion when it comes to a domain language versus like unnecessary complexity. I'm just talking right now, but
no, that makes total sense. The app is a UI site. It really shouldn't have much in terms of business logic in it at all. I mean, sometimes for pragmatic purposes, it kind of needs it, but um, just speed potentially or some other stuff. But yeah, I mean that should be the exception, not the rule.
well, I mean, my argument is an app when it needs to make a request to the outside world, it should be a toddler, right? It should not have to articulate a vocabulary that only the server knows, right? It should say, give me la, and that's it. It shouldn't have to say, give me matrix C coordinate XC by. It shouldn't know any of that. It should be a baby, and the back end or the server should have an interpreter that says, oh, okay, this is the argument coming in. All right, this is what I'm going to give it back. And you shouldn't have the application parse the hell out of anything or try to describe in detail in 2 sentences what it needs. Like, and like, I think I'm too advanced. It's weird because I feel like the more mature you get in building systems, the more you're inclined to make things simple. It's like it's strange. Like the more advanced you get, the simpler your models become, or the
Mm-hmm.
more in your terms, the more abstract your models become, and your requests become. And you know where to
Well,
put the complexity, where to shift the complexity at, right? So
yeah,
um,
but you can only do that if you work with people that
get it.
yeah, or well that want to test things at an integration level, or at a component level, and not at the like class level, implementation detail type level. Because otherwise, you have to add many layers of abstraction to support that stuff.
I discovered a new
Interface,
pattern.
whatever.
I discovered a new pattern. So have you ever like had a for an application had a form where they input some fields or they check whatever, and then you needed to summarize the the fields of what the user has chosen or inputted, but not show the exact same form, but create a summary of bullet points. So I learned a pattern functionally where I'll create I'll generate a list that has all the fields that the form has and the inputs that they have, or no inputs at all. All that stuff gets included, and it'll go through every single item of that form, regardless of what data it has in it or what it doesn't have in it. And it'll, for each field, I'll have a a a sentence as a description that's independent of it, and given the value in the field or no value at all, if the field has a valid value, then I'll map the field and its value to a bullet point, and I'll do that for an entire form. And then when you get to the review page, it just has a list of bullet points that are in simple terms. Um, I don't know. I thought it was cool. I've never done it before. And the way I did it, I didn't have any if conditions. I just had like, I literally just had a list of field values that mapped into a list of bullet points. It was like a little rules engine or something.
Hmm.
It's cooler if I showed you the syntax, but I can't because it's intellectual property.
Sure. Write a blog post about it in abstract terms, and I can
Yeah.
look at it and be amazed.
Is there anything else to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know. Uh, so I worked from home the whole week, and obviously I'll be until this thing is kind of blown over. I'm going to be working from home. So
I don't think this is blowing over anytime soon.
yeah, I guess it depends on if there's some medical breakthrough or whatever. That's really the trick here. Otherwise, it's quarantine until further notice or whatever.
Okay, here we go. So I got into a hot debate and I had to suspend the discussion because she was getting too agitated. So, how do you feel? Is social distancing the new term now? Is that what it's
I
called?
think
So,
it's gonna be the term of the year.
okay.
Like it'll be the term of the because it didn't show up until just recently, and it's been all over the place now.
So, Mark, I was having a conversation which, because I'm in Canada and I'm not alone by myself like the majority of the time that I am, I was listening to the radio, or I was forced to listen to the radio. Radio sucks. Radio always talks about people. They don't talk about things or ideas. They just talk about people, right? It's nothing but a tabloid. But anyway, radio was talking about how spring breakers in Miami were not complying with social distancing, and and it was saying it as if it was frowned upon. And the person I was with was like, "Yeah, that just aggravates me. Like, you shouldn't be congregating in large groups, this, that, and the other." And I'm like, why not? I mean, we don't know how long this is going to take to blow over. And honestly, if I spent $1,000 to go to Miami after I had a grueling semester, and I just want to relax and meet people and do my thing, for a week before I return back to business up north as a college student, why wouldn't I like take advantage of spring break? Like, I'm not old. It's a high likelihood that if I do catch it, my body will manage it and I'll be okay, regardless of if I'm a carrier moving forward afterwards. But like, I don't believe that life should pause for the next year or two, um, just because people are catching a virus that tends to target elderly people or people with compromised immune systems. If you're healthy, like, why should you stop your 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 lifestyle? And I'm serious. Like, why should you? If it's not going to have a dramatic effect on you, you'll be sick for a week or whatever, but then you'll get past it just like a flu. Then why should you pause your life for other people um, that have compromised immune systems? And she got heated. But I honestly don't see anything wrong with it. For people that have compromised immune systems, they need to avoid contact with others, right? Um, for people that their bodies are hardened and they could like push through it, then do what you do. Shouldn't have to pause 2 years of my life. What do you think?
Um, I mean, it's hard to say. Because I mean, if you're going to be in the, I guess, public space, I think that there's some responsibility on you to try to not introduce as best you can things that can harm other people. Um, with regards to people in Miami, being on the beach, I saw the big beach ones and stuff like that, and um, I'm not so sure I'd be outraged about that because I've heard the coronavirus has got a real tough time with UV light, and so when you're sitting in the hot sun for many hours, I don't expect there to be a lot of transmission capability there. Um, I don't know that. I'm not a scientist. I don't, but it's just based on what I've heard that there's not. I'm not going to be outraged seeing a bunch of people at the beach. And in fact, it'd probably be helpful for a lot of people to be on the beach, but just stay away from each other as best they can. Um, but you know, yeah, I don't think people should necessarily go on pause, but I think I think the worry is that you don't have it and you accidentally kill someone that you care about. Um, now that's easy if you don't have anyone that you care about, uh, right? But for people that do have people that they care about, who also have to interact with people who don't have people that they care about, with those immune, it's I can see there, why she'd be heated about it. But I can also see your point too that what happens if we don't get an answer for another year? Are we all just going to sit inside and you know do nothing for a year? I don't know.
Yeah. So my argument is, if people are sensitive to, or if people are highly conscious or sensitive to not uh, contracting and passing it on, then it totally makes sense for them to isolate themselves. But for people that don't care as much, I don't think you should tell them how they should spend their life. I don't think you should. I don't think you should dictate their lifestyle,
I don't
right?
think anyone should dictate their
So
lifestyle.
if you don't want to catch anything and you don't want to pass it, then don't participate in I don't know. It starts with a C, not conjugate, but don't participate in large groups. But for you to get mad at other people that they don't have the constraints or responsibilities, or they're not taking care of grandma in their house, well, like, that was your decision, right? So you shouldn't force other people that don't have those responsibilities to live as Shaolin monks, because they don't have the lifestyle that you have. They don't have the obligations that you have,
Well,
right?
that's what I'm saying is that, but the thing is that so let's just say that this is the case. Let's say you're person A, and you have a grandma that does have an immune system problem, and she lives by herself, and she is secluding herself, but she still needs supplies and stuff. So you're the person that gives it to her. You have to work at your job, or you have to work around other people. You have to be in contact with person B at who might be just shopping at the supermarket with you at the same time. Person B doesn't give a crap about anyone. They just,
Yeah.
they're having their good old time. They're not they don't need a social distance. But the thing is that they can contract it and pass it along to person with the grandma that's taken care of, and then just by the fact that it's being transferred through them, they might not even know they have it until it's too late. Now they've killed grandma. So,
I,
I mean, that's the concern.
I agree. But the thing is it's imminent. There's nothing you could do. The only thing you could do is slow it down, but it's
Yeah,
imminent. It's going to
well,
happen.
that's the idea. Is the point the points that I've heard is slowing it down. You've heard the flatten the curve argument thing, probably. I don't know if you follow on Twitter, but the idea is what they want to do is that they want to make it so that if this happens imminently, that it happens over a longer period of time, so that the resources that and the health people don't get overwhelmed with the amount of cases that they have to adjust for. So they're trying to make it so that it doesn't spread really really fast and basically just tax the system to the point where everyone has to die basically. Um,
I, I, I get that argument.
yeah.
I understand that argument. It's kind of a debate of personal freedom versus what's not really encroaching on other people, but it's basically like the the issue between practicing your own, like, personal freedom or personal choice versus the side effect of you congregating is going to result in other people dying.
Just one
Maybe,
second.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Sorry
I
about that.
don't know. I see the other side. I do.
Yeah. Well, the other part of it too is that with kind of flattening the curve or just extending this over is that it gives a better chance for clinical trials on vaccines and then to test drugs. Um, there's been some drugs apparently that have had good uh, in the limited studies that they've done that have had a good capability of actually treating the thing. So um, if they can get that down, and it is something where they could say, hey, here, take this prescription, go home, don't leave your house. Bye. Um, okay. Sorry.
No,
My wife's just taking off here. But but if they could get that, then it would change the game too, because you could just people with immune system problems. We'd only have people that don't respond to the medications to deal with. Um, I mean, there's also a concern too for healthcare people, though. That's a big one. Like my sister in law is a nurse, and she just had someone in like the middle of Wyoming that she's a traveling nurse,
hmm
and this person's in their 40s. I don't think they had a compromised immune system or whatever. They just passed away because of it. So
yeah,
it's not just it's also dealing with all these healthcare people that don't necessarily have the supplies they need to kind of quarantine or keep themselves safe. So I mean, it's uh, the thing is, the other thing with it is that people should have the freedom to do what they want, but people should also have the freedom to to talk down about people that do, and to kind of ostracize those people in the same way that they do with like if somebody's a white nationalist, that's not an acceptable thing to be, and people will really rag to, you know degrade them people for being that way. um, and that's a social, a societal thing, trying to stop that behavior that doesn't need to force itself into law or anything like that, right? We can have freedom of speech and freedom of ideas, and people have the total right to say your ideas suck and to try to post them up, as long as you're being kind of truthful about the nature of things. Unlike that one situation where that kid was staring down that one guy, and Twitter was in an uproar and people were whatever, and the kid was the one being harassed. So
what are you talking about? The Native Americans?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, when
Yeah,
that kid was just standing there and he was getting harassed. So
yeah, I never really read into it,
yeah,
but
it was a total case of the media glopped onto an image, and the rhetoric said one thing from the image, but the reality of the context was this kid was getting harassed by these protesters. So it was kind of a sobering moment, but I don't know. It's tough times for sure. Um,
I wonder what the preppers are up to right now. I just got hit. I don't watch TV, right? So I was in Ottawa like last week, and I, s- I got hip to this Netflix series called I don't know if it's, well, I think it was on National Geographic, but it made it to Netflix, called Preppers. Are you familiar
yeah,
with it?
yeah,
You
doomsday
know, like,
preppers and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, I bet you they're like probably rejoicing right now. Like, I'm not crazy. I told you. I told you.
I know some people that they're having, like, this is fun in terms of, like, it's an activity, like, it, as if the world is coming to an end, and they can kind of, like, oh, I'm gonna make sure that I've got all my we've got our bug out plan, and we've got all of our supplies, and we've got guns, and we're all good. So
Yeah, I was at Walmart and I couldn't find any guns. I don't think guns are easily accessible in Canada.
yeah, likely not. go to Walmart here or Fleet Farm or the gun range, I suppose, or Gander Mountain probably has them.
Go to a gun show.
Yeah, pawn shop. Yeah, I'm in Minnesota though. There's lots of guns around here, northern Minnesota, anyways. Or you just go to North Dakota where there's more guns, lots of guns, but not much gun violence.
Not much people.
Hmm? In North Dakota.
It's not many people. Yeah.
I guess yeah, it's not concentrated people. There's also less socioeconomic uh, problems, I guess. But there is some, and there's drugs and stuff too. So meth and whatever. That's usually where if there is gun violence in the region is kind of around that.
Well, you can say that. I would say there's a deeper cause to why people resort to drugs, right?
Yeah,
I never, not that I'm affiliated with drug users, but I could be wrong, but I've never heard of people smoking meth because they want to party, right? Same thing with maybe it's not fair for me to say because I'm pretty ignorant about it, but I was going to say same thing with heroin. Like I don't think people do that as a party drug. It's not like cocaine, right? People do it to escape or to self medicate.
yeah.
So I think,
Well, heroin's that's an opioid, right? So that's usually the whole crisis is that that stuff got prescribed and it's addictive, and so they needed it because they're addicted to it. Right?
well, probably a
Cocaine
significant,
is much more of a party type thing. I'm
probably
pretty
a
sure.
significant number, but you forget that you have people out there that they're not really doing much in life. They don't really have huge obligations, and so they just experiment. Regardless of all the warning signs, they still decide to take that hit for the first time and
Well,
then
yeah,
spend
people
the
have
rest of their
tough.
life chasing it.
Yeah, people have tough early lives too, and yeah, like you said, self medicating for depression or whatever.
Yeah, so I think that causes, I think circumstance is the root cause to crime and not necessarily drugs. I think drugs is the next stage of it because of it. But that's just my
Yeah,
personal
yeah,
opinion.
it's a symptom, not a not the thing itself. Yeah, no, I get that. That's why I'm saying there is some around here, but it's less, and I think that a lot of it is there's still socioeconomic opportunity. So, but well, in North Dakota there is, but there's still people that fall through the edges and cracks and whatever. So
Spend the last 5 minutes talking about uh you don't play Call of Duty, do you?
I've played it. I don't play it currently.
I'm amazed of Call of Duty and other companies like that are able to just pump out features like every like 2 months and that are pretty solid. And they have, I don't know how many developers you think those type of gaming companies have working on one product like Call of Duty.
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
It's like how do you, I'm amazed at how you can create extremely high quality products such as Call of Duty and consistently pump out feature after feature after feature after feature. And like, I mean, you don't play it, but like, there's a like every like 2 months, there's like a probably a 16 gig download of the next feature of it, and it's on like a regular cadence. And I try to YouTube like engineering practices for Call of Duty, and I can't find anything. Like I wonder what their secret sauce is for them being able to scale like that. Like
Well, and the with the, I mean, because is it, are they actually shipping things that would require much code changes beyond what they have? Is it just another
They
piece of
they
content?
they ship new maps. They ship new game modes. Like they had this game mode, and I've been in Canada, so I haven't played my Xbox in like
Hmm.
almost 3 weeks. But they shipped a new game mode called Warzone. So they're Call of Duty is like it's always first person shooter, but the difference is they are the game is an umbrella of a whole bunch of individual games that are all first person shooter, but some are strategy game or some are campaign games. The majority of them are multiplayer games, but they have different maps, they have different characters. I mean, like it's
Yeah.
a whole bunch of games in one.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is with that is it's probably not as complicated to issue those things, I mean, than you think, because most of the actual first person, shooting and all the mechanics are the exact same. All they're doing is applying some macro rules to the way that you play the game. Um,
Yeah, but they're scaling it. Like I, I would love to see their solution explorer,
yeah,
for Call of Duty, and it's probably like 60 different repos.
yeah.
Um,
But I mean, the maps and stuff like that, that's all just content that they're building out. So they have to design it. So, but the actual coding piece of it, um, most of it has probably been done. They just have a really defined engine and well defined engine.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see like I'd love to see the solution for League of Legends. I mean, that's been in active production for 10 years or better than 10 years. Like just looking at a game that's sat there and been built over 10 years and continually evolved and added to and changed up. And then they've done mechanic changes, but they've added new champions that have different skills and abilities and whatever. And I just was reading a technical article about how they're redesigning their missile system in it. Um, Missiles being like just projectiles from one person to another or whatever.
hmm
And they're like, it looks like this, and it's a big spaghetti mess, and here's all the problems with it. And they're like, and here's how we've, you know, basically turned that into more of a componentized system and made it so we can just build this stuff. And now we can do cool shit like this, where they have like the projectiles just go in crazy patterns and stuff like that. So,
I wonder what
but
their
yeah,
interview process is like.
riots or
What
what they are.
their interview
Yeah,
process for getting developers that are sound in engineering. Like clearly has to be different from line of business developers that you don't find out that they're mediocre or bad developers until like if you're a manager until like 3 months in or when it's too late.
yeah. I interviewed with them. I didn't pass the culture. I didn't pass the culture interview.
Or that's the one where you said that you would take a back seat and you wouldn't stand up
Yeah,
for your concerns.
yeah. That's I knew midway through the interview that it was over. So but they, I don't know. I'm curious to see if that's changed a bit because they had this big fallout of a toxic culture thing, and so I wonder if their interview they had these core principles that you were expected to kind of know and they ask around, and I think those core principles have changed now. So I wonder if their interview process is less is less I guess is less what am I saying, hostile to people who are tend to be a little more agreeable or whatever. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know, but I'm sure it's rather rigorous if you get to the technical side. But man, they got a lot of cool problems they solve because it's not just the game itself that they're building. They have a bunch of dev tools for people that they build internally. There's networking stacks and opportunities and their esports stuff. So and then now they're expanding into other games finally. So they're building out a character based shooter, and they've got a mobile version of League of Legends coming, and they've got a card game and a bunch of other stuff going on. So
I just feel like they're doing some Egyptian advanced like stuff that is so like trade secretive that I'm missing out, and I wanna learn the paradigms that they're working off of.
Nah, you know what it is? It's they're probably shipping stuff going like, oh, this is gonna crash so hard in production, and just sitting there, you know, just as uneasy and like, oh, you don't know how many band-aids that we put over this thing,
You
just
think
as
so?
uneasy as everyone else. I bet, I bet you.
It's too big. Like, don't you think it would have failed already? Like, Call of
No,
Duty has
yeah,
to be more than 10 years old, and like for stuff that is band-aided up and patched up, it's just not sustainable. These people are literally like, now maybe we should dissect this, right? It's Activision, and the other one starts with a T. I think they have
Treyarch, yeah,
Treyarch. Um, so they have two different companies that pump out the various games. Visually, Activision just looks better. It feels better. But the point that I'm trying to get to is no, I maybe you're right, but I don't think they're able to sustainably kick out game after game, feature after feature after feature if it was really in that state. I don't
yeah.
know.
Well, iterating over Call of Duty's engine for over a decade probably helps. They've probably worked out most of those kinks.
I can imagine how they can engineer something to be that scalable, keep building, 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 building all these dependencies off of a C++ code base that's infinitely error prone. Like that boggles my mind. I want to know what they're doing. All right, so I could apply it to my own personal practice.
Probably assertions and really good engineers.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could contact them and ask for sign an NDA and just say I want to know what your coding practices are, like a tour. Like I want a tour, but I want to know what your coding practices are. I want to understand how you write this code. I don't know. You could probably look. There's got to be a developer blog out there or something, or somebody who's used to work for these things that could talk about their practices and how they built whatever. But the other thing is too is like if you think about it, games, a lot of it is just the client based stuff, right? There's not huge, and there's multiplayer, right? But there's not these huge systems that have multiple people interacting around tremendous amount of business rules. It's just the client and then some packets sent back and forth, maybe some matchmaking algorithms and stuff like that on the server. But that's it. It's not. It's they're complex in terms of uh, uh, in terms of being in a box, like algorithmically complex. But beyond that, from like if you treat it like a versus business software that runs, you know, a $1 billion business or something like that with many people and many moving parts and processes that have to interact, it's probably significantly less complex than that. So I'd say there's probably more complexity in the thing you're building in terms of just having to deal with errors and you know sharing knowledge across things versus saying here's your game and here's your game server, two components.
well, I mean, I wonder if they're passing around primitive types everywhere to different functions, or if they're like me and they're passing around these crazy stringent types that result in very few if conditions or if statements in their code base, where like their compiler is just a whole bunch of solid Lego pieces, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to guess that they'd be doing stuff that's more with primitives just because of performance.
Okay.
Like if you have to collect garbage and stuff like that all takes it. So they definitely have to code differently um, because they need huge amounts of performance out of things. So, but I don't know. They leverage the GPU a lot more than any other projects that we deal with. So you probably have to. That's a whole nother realm of development you've probably never even looked at. It's just interacting with graphics cards with shaders and things like that.
Mm-mm.
Man, it's
Is
nuts.
that considered embedded?
I don't think so. Um, Embedded's more like circuits and or like small machine things. No, this is graphics programming.
Mm.
I think it's what it's called.
All right, well, it's been real.
Yeah, I don't want to go to work yet, even though I don't have to go anywhere. I just have to literally swap to that computer. So
I've
let the
been
dogs out.
working this morning since 4:30, so I'm like, and it sucks to wake up early in the morning to try to be productive and brag about what you delivered at the morning status meeting, and be stuck on a stupid bug for like 2 hours. So,
Yeah.
all right. Oh,
Cool.
it's been real.
Yep.
Thanks. See
Have a
you.
good week. Bye.
You too. Bye.